Welcome to the HU Move Makers podcast, where we highlight folks that are blazing the trail and making moves in Howard culture. Welcome to the HU Move Maker podcast, where we highlight folks in Howard culture that are blazing the trail and making moves. Today, we got a very special guest, man. One of my classmates from Howard. School of Business,
yes,
International Marketing, men's basketball team, man, Phi Sigma Pi. This brother's a litigator, negotiator, trial attorney, man. Doing his thing out in New Orleans, Southern University Law School. You can catch this man on the basketball court, the golf court, traveling with his lovely wife and 4 kids. Or you can catch him being a boss, man, of the Blondell law firm, helping the little guy get maximum compensation, serious and catastrophic personal injuries, wrongful death, commercial litigation. Blondell, welcome to the show, bro.
And what's up with it? Jay Mercer. Glad to be here with you, man. It's a pleasure. I'm gonna tell you, I might need you to come introduce me when I walk in court like that if I got a trial.
Hey, man, if it could help you get that maximum compensation, anything, man. Anything, yes, I got you, man. So you got your own setup down there, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah. I've been blessed to be able to hang up my own shingle. I've been practicing law for about 11 years now, and the first half of that was doing defense work. I was in-house counsel with an insurance company, and then shifted over to doing plaintiff's work. So,
man, so you was like a double agent.
Something like that, man.
You was a double agent, so you learned all the little tricks, man, and then you flipped it on them. So you work for an insurance company, defending the insurance company. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting because I was around a lot of folks who doing insurance defense work were obviously a little more long in the tooth, more experienced, and had a number of different experiences practicing law. And I found that, just in conversation, they would say, when I was doing, private firm, or when I was a district attorney, they had all this wealth of experiences that they pulled from in their legal practice. And so I was doing defense work in-house with an insurance company for 4.5, almost 5 years, and came to a spot where I was like, you know what, I need to kind of just venture out a little bit and get a different experience in the practice, and decided to go to the other side. And so it served me well because I had the experience under my belt of doing defense work. You get in a car accident or somebody goes and slips inside of a municipal building or whatever, then the insurance company that insures that building has an attorney that they assign to defend the company or the entity or the driver. And so I was that and that was me.
Oh, man.
So I learned that side of the game, and then went to the other side eventually.
So when you were doing this, man, and were you like investigating cats too, or did you have to hire a private investigator to see if, somebody said their back was broke, but really they hooping on the weekends?
Yeah, so it's funny because, yes, to answer your question, and you do it in both, by both means. There were instances where, I did my own due diligence, just based on, convenience. If it was somewhere that wasn't necessarily convenient for me to get to, then we had an in-house investigator, or there were folks we could hire to go and do so. And you'll be surprised, man. I mean, there's some folks out there who will manufacture, their claims or do things that aren't necessarily consistent with what they're complaining of. And in the same breath, there are folks out there who legitimately have issues. And if you put surveillance on them, all you're going to get is footage of them being in pain and limping around. So it goes both ways. It cuts both ways.
So, man, now that you're on the other side, man, and you get that in, let's say I come to you, man, I'm like, yo, I did slip and fall, but I ain't really hurt like that. You know what I'm saying? I got, let's, I slipped and fell at, I don't know, I was working for Amazon. They got billions of dollars, man. They not going to miss this 2-3 million that we trying to get. If I'm your customer, man, I come to you like that, like, man, I ain't really hurt, but I'm just trying to get paid. I ain't gonna lie. Like, what's your responsibility as my lawyer? Once I air it out and I tell you, like, yo, I'm not even really hurt like that, but I'm just trying to get some cash.
Yeah. So You'll be surprised. Like you learn very quickly before you even sign a client up how to read people, and that's one of the talents and the skills that you build that you gain as an attorney. Um, any good attorney, any savvy attorney understands how to do their due diligence on the front end before the client signs the dotted line to retain you and retain your services. And as attorneys, as crazy as it sounds, we have this moral and ethical obligation to operate, um, and operate with integrity, obviously, and not to color between the lines. And so, yeah. So if you were to disclose that to me, then I wouldn't be able to be your attorney, man. That's something I wouldn't be able to
Oh,
get in the
really?
mix with. Straight
Man,
up, I wouldn't even sign you up. I wouldn't do that to myself.
damn.
I wouldn't do it
So
to myself. It
so
sounds
even
crazy,
if
but I wouldn't.
you felt like we could win the case, like you like, yo, it's gonna be a slam dunk, and you knew your client was lying, you'll be like, no, I can't help you.
I can't help you because I'm telling you, Josh, it's never worth it, bro. Inevitably, it'll come back to bite you. It
Damn.
never fails. I have sat in
You couldn't
depositions.
be my lawyer, man.
No, yo, listen. I have literally sat in depositions with clients before. Um, and just for example, I inherited a case in a firm that I was with before. They pulled the case from another attorney, gave it to me, so I hadn't had a lot of opportunity to meet with the client, to talk with the client. And he had a deposition coming up within days of me getting the case. And so I sat down with him. I said, look, I need to know everything that there is about you before we go into this deposition. Obviously, I got an opportunity to go through some of your information, but he was the one being deposed, so I was just defending it. And my obligation at that point is to object to certain things and just to protect his interests as best as I can. But generally speaking, the other attorney can ask what he wants to. So I asked him about his background. He's like, yeah, I'm good. Nothing telling that you need to, be worried about. We get in a deposition, and the first question that the other attorney asks him, he sits down, the court reporter starts recording, and the attorney looks at him, he says, so how long you been on that heroin? Right?
Damn.
This is the first question. And evidently, what wasn't in his records that I had available to me and what he failed to disclose to me was the fact that he had an overdose episode and went to the ER. Now, while they may not have nothing to do with a car accident, it might be quite telling of his character. And that's something that I need to know, right? If you're a drug abuser, I need to know that so I can try to protect your interests in terms of what gets disclosed and what's relevant and not relevant. And so I was surprised to find that out in the depot. Um, so yeah, so dealing with certain people, obviously, like everyone's entitled to representation, and you want to advocate zealously for your client, but you also need to know everything you can so you don't put yourself in a sticky situation.
Damn. So I mean, do you know lawyers like that that'll just represent and do whatever for their client? Like, as long as the client say, like, hey, whatever you say we're gonna do, this is what we're gonna do. Are there lawyers like that, or are most of them like you?
I mean, I would like to think that most of them are like me, but the unfortunate reality is that there have been situations where allegations have been made about attorneys manufacturing or being involved in the manufacturing of car accidents, with vehicles that are presumed to have large insurance policies backing them, like 18 wheelers, trucking industry kind of thing. So you do hear stories about that kind of stuff, and sometimes it ends up in the news. Sometimes um, there's some truth to it. Sometimes there isn't. Sometimes it's the actual clients and the drivers that are manufacturing the accidents because they think that they can get away with it.
Okay, so I get in an accident, right? Or I have one of these catastrophic injuries, man. And is it more like, is like, do most of the people that come to you, are they settling out of court, or are you going to trial?
So, as a trial attorney and litigator, you're obviously prepared to take every case to trial if need be. But there is a bit of an art form to building a case properly, because as an insurance company and as an attorney for the insurance company, your obligation is either to get a case dismissed on legal grounds or to mitigate your exposure as best as possible. You're in the insurance game, you understand what that means. It's all about risks. So if you understand what the risk is and you can figure out where you can um, lessen the risk, then the insurance company is going to do their best to do that. So with that having been said, as a plaintiff's attorney being on the other side, you got to make sure that you're building a case properly, that a client is getting the treatment that they need, that they're going to physicians who operate with integrity as well, who are prescribing medications and doing treatment modalities that are consistent with the injuries, and then also who are prepared to back that up should they have to go on a stand in trial and defend what they did. Because essentially, my job is to advocate that what happened, as far as the treatment is concerned, was warranted in light of the injuries that you sustained. And the insurance company is going to say, as best as they can, where the treatments or the modalities that they had or the surgeries that they may have had, they're going to try to demonstrate that it wasn't necessarily needed and to limit their exposure overall. And so it's a delicate dance that
So
we
when
do.
you were representing insurance companies, did you always feel like you was on the right side, or did you ever sometimes feel like, man, I'm kind of bogus? I'm kind of bogus. I got all these resources. I got $1 billion behind me,
Right.
protecting this company. Maybe we should have paid out, but if I'm gonna do my job, obviously, you gotta protect the brand, protect the
Right.
bottom line.
Right.
You ain't trying to go back to your boss like, yeah, lost another one, but hey,
Right.
is
Cut the check.
yeah.
Nah, man. I mean, I never felt conflicted per se. I think coming out of law school, um, it's really weird because when we finished undergrad in '03, that was kind of like when the bubble popped, for lack of a better term. And so a lot of folks who thought they had jobs coming right out didn't necessarily have that. And that kind of happened again in '09 with the real estate bubble. And so when that happened, again, a lot of folks, top of the class, really good grades, didn't necessarily get the jobs that they thought. I was fortunate to have interned in-house with the insurance company. And at the end of that internship, after my second year of law school, I got a job offer. So I went into my last year of law school knowing I had a job lined up and I was comfortable in that regard. But what was even more beneficial was the fact that I went straight into the fire. I mean, when I walked in the door, they were like, look, here's 80 cases. They're all in litigation. Go and figure it out. And so I learned a lot, having the opportunity to cut my teeth litigating and trying cases. And so my focus wasn't necessarily, am I on the right side of the V? It was making sure that I was learning as much of the game as I possibly could and was getting good results.
Welcome to the Go Fish Village podcast. As a Chinese proverb says, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. At Go Fish, our goal is to teach individuals just like you how to build wealth through real estate. How do you come to that number of what damages are?
So the numbers are more often than not dictated by the nature of the injury and the treatment history. So for example, I always tell my client, look, you run the show. Don't get me wrong. I've been doing this for a minute and I hope you take heed to my advices, but you're the client. So at the end of the day, you hold the final say. And the reason why I tell them that is because what I'm able to advocate for is heavily dictated by the nature of the treatment and how long they treat. And some people, because life goes on and they still have bills to pay, they need to go to work, they have kids, they have all these obligations. If they're not treating consistently and if they're not doing what they need to do in order to build the case properly, sometimes you get a call, a couple of weeks in and they're like, or a couple of months in on a case where they might need to treat for 5-6 months. They're calling in month 2 saying, look, I can't make the treatment, I'm missing too much work, or the schedule's too hectic, just shut it down and get what you can on it. And I always tell people, like, you gotta understand, I can't get blood from a stone. So you can't expect a big dollar type of result when you didn't treat consistently with a big dollar type of result. So again, you can't get 6 months of treatment type of compensation if you only treat it for 1 month or 2 months. And once you explain to people on the front end what the expectation is and they get it, then usually you're fine. But the name in and of itself isn't necessarily going to dictate how much that recovery is. Like, yes, Oprah's a big name, but the question is Oprah losing wages because of her injury where she can't work anymore?
But if she's losing wages and she's a highly compensated person, that is going to factor into.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. Because then she'll have a lost wage component to her claim.
Savage.
Yeah. So I mean, and there are other things that come into play as well, but But yeah, it can get pretty hot and heavy sometimes, man.
So okay, so when you go, man, to the other side, man, and you defending the plaintiffs, right? Did I say that right?
I'm representing the
You
plaintiff.
representing the plaintiffs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you representing the plaintiffs. Like, how is compensation on the corporate side different from compensation on the side when there's
On the plaintiff side.
on the plaintiff side?
So typically, as a defense attorney, you're operating on a billable hour, and the bigger the firm, the more experienced the attorney, the higher that billable hour rate is going to be, right?
So you build the insurance company?
Well, if you're in-house, you're not necessarily billing the insurance company, you're just keeping track of your billable hours, right? If you work for a law firm, the law firm is contracted with the insurance company, and so they're keeping track of their billable hour and then sending that bill to the insurance company. I was in-house, right? So if you're in-house, generally speaking, you're a salary-based employee, but you're still keeping track of your billable hour because that's how you justify your existence. Because you got to keep in mind the insurance company is going to have its own attorneys, and they're going to have attorneys that are outside counsel who they contract with that
Mm.
probably cost a lot more. And so the idea is if you have a team of in-house attorneys who are getting the same result as your your outside counsel, there's going to be a difference in how much money you're putting out for legal services. And that's
Why would they get outside counsel if they got you in house?
because there's a lot of cases. I
Man,
saw
it's
somebody.
that many cases. So these big companies are basically getting sued every day.
Yeah, I saw somebody post something on social media saying that in Houston between May of 2020 and I think either in July of, I'm sorry, maybe the end of June, that there were 50,000 car accidents.
Mm.
50,000 car accidents in the state of Texas. So you extrapolate that out. That's a lot of accidents, a lot of claims that eventually turn into lawsuits. And so your in-house team is generally going to be pretty small in comparison to the number of cases that could be coming in. So you get outside counsel because it's just about case management.
Man, okay. So on the defense or the I don't know if I'm saying this right, but on the plaintiff side, man,
Yeah.
how are you guys compensated?
So on the plaintiff side, it's typically in the personal injury realm. It's typically we like to say eat what you kill. So generally speaking, it's a contingency agreement. We don't get compensated unless the client gets paid. So
So
that's
if you lose a case, you're not gonna get nothing.
nothing. Well, and again, a loss is also relative because you could win a case and not get as much on it as you think that the client is entitled to. And so you're technically getting money, but depending on how much you had to put into the case, how much time, how much energy, what the client may have gone through, that number might not necessarily be what you think it should be. And in that instance, yeah, you're not necessarily losing the case, but you're not getting as much on it as you think that the client might be entitled to. And then in other instances, you can get a windfall and really, get a good result and justify everything that you and the client had to go through to get to that point.
Okay, so so you represent a client, you don't get paid until there's a W,
Right.
unless I guess the client is made whole or
Right.
receives some type of damages. So, all right, you have to spend money though
Yeah.
to like if there's like if I don't know if you want to get an expert
Yep.
witness, whatever they call, like them people that can testify, like this was why this, you get an expert up there on the stand, you got to pay that, you got to compensate that person. You might get like a private investigator or something, or maybe look into the practices of the insurance company or whatever. So you saying that sometimes you can do a case and not only lose time, but you can lose a lot of money on a case.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is. So being a plaintiff's attorney is an exercise in patience, um, pressure, tolerance, risk tolerance, because I've had cases where um, we didn't get it resolved for 4 years, from the date of the accident, and put in, not millions, but hundreds of thousands of dollars into a case before you get to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And
you've put over 100 grand into a case.
Yeah.
And so you must really believe it. You must really, I guess at that point it becomes personal.
Pretty much, yeah. You're all in with the client. And so, yeah, I mean, you pretty much become a part of their family in large part, because you spend a lot of time with them, and you travel, you take all these depositions, you get very, very you gain a lot of knowledge into the intimate nature of their relationship with their significant other too, because these accidents don't just affect the client, they also affect their significant others, their family, their kids, so on and so forth. So yeah, so there's a lot that goes into it.
So is it safe to say, like, to do your line of work, before you get started, you got to have some bread stashed away or some serious access to capital?
So yeah, and there's a couple of ways to go about it. I mean, you can take the slow stroll and kind of try to build up some liquid capital. Obviously, going to a bank, getting a line of credit, getting some some cash flow that you can inject into your cases is key. Because
there are like loans that you can take specifically for your line of work?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And yeah, there are different, I mean, you can go the traditional route, go to a bank. There are companies out there that fund cases that some folks, some attorneys like to deal with. And it's a delicate balance of understanding how much liquidity you need in your company and in your law firm versus how much you're going to put on credit, knowing that, you may or may not get it back.
But, knowing the law like you do, I mean, are there ways, like, if you lose a case, can you just file bankruptcy and be like, oh, sorry? Is that, can lawyers do that?
So I'm not a bankruptcy attorney, but I think that what you'll find is that most lawyers and most law firms will do everything in their power never to be in that position. And just like any other business, I think if times get tough like that and you find yourself in a bad spot, then sure, bankruptcy is obviously going to be an option.
Yeah.
But the community is small. So
but that probably can affect your license too.
I don't know.
I know in the insurance field, that's a question.
Yeah, I don't know if it necessarily can affect your license per se, but it could affect your reputation.
What's like the biggest loss you ever had?
Oh, the biggest loss.
My wife gonna trip when I get home.
I haven't had a big loss financially. Let me knock on some wood per se, but I have had a case where, we put about $500,000 into the case, and the case was probably about a $4 million case. Okay. And after 3.5 to 4 years of building the case, and the client needing multiple surgeries, so you're paying for surgeries, you're paying for experts, you're traveling from state to state,
Damn.
taking depositions, doing
all this. Are you having to pay that back monthly? Like, how does that?
Well, so for some of the procedures, you're paying them up front. I mean, again, as a plaintiff's attorney.
No, like if you take out a credit line, like
$5. Oh yeah.
You got it. Like, are these like special loans where they say, hey, the first payment is not due for a year? Or is it like, hey, it's due 30, 60 days after, and then you paying us back monthly?
So it depends. If you're paying for stuff on your line of credit, then yeah, every month you got a bill that you got to pay,
Damn.
But there are different financing vehicles, again, that are available, and different contractual agreements that you can enter into, where some of those entities will wait and take on some of the risk with you, meaning that they don't get paid until the case resolves, But in instances like that, they're looking at the case quite closely to see what the risk is, almost like an insurance company would do, because they want their money back.
A $4 million case, you put up $500,000, and typically personal injury, you guys will get a third of the settlement, right?
Right.
Damn. So you put up $500,000. I guess a third of that is like what, 1.2 or something like that $1 million. Did y'all settle, or did you break even on that case or something?
I broke even, which is why I said I didn't take a loss. But you can imagine when you put that much time into a case and you have an expectation that a client is going to get a certain type of result, and you know everything that they've gone through, and you get to a point where you become a part of their family, and you get close with them, and you really, it's at a certain point, it's not even about the money. It's about making sure that the client gets the result that they need so that they can get back to the quality of life that they had before. When you're early in the game and you first get out of law school, it's about making money, and you obviously want to be able to pay Sally Mae back and get to a point where you're comfortable. But after you've been doing it for a little while, what you really come to appreciate is that at the end of the day, it's about making sure that the client is happy and doing good work for people. And if you do that, and if that's your focus, then the money comes.
What's the biggest case you ever, like, the biggest one you've ever won? You like, man, I'm that dude. You feel me?
The biggest case. Wow, Josh, you going in. You want to know about the bread. The biggest one was, I think, 3.2.
Whoa.
Something like that.
Whoa, that's huge.
Yeah, I think it was 3.2 some years ago. But I mean, the thing is, like,
that's a big one, man.
Yeah,
that's
but the thing is, you'll get cases that roll in like that, and it takes a lot of work to get them to that point. That doesn't just come automatically, just because somebody has an accident with a big old truck, they got a big old policy, it doesn't mean that the money, that they're entitled to that big money. You have to have big injuries too, and you have to be able to you have to understand the art of building that properly in order to be able to illustrate to a judge, a jury, or the opposing attorney in the insurance company that the check I'm asking for is warranted, and it could be more. So, cut the check.
So, I mean, how many clients can you handle at once?
I think at once, the most that I've had by myself managing all of them at once was about 113.
That's a lot, man. How can you dedicate proper attention to when you got 113 crying babies, man?
There's a rhythm to it, man. There's a rhythm to it, and you figure it out. That's how you do it. It's just experience, and you learn to delegate. I mean, I do have a network of paralegals that work with me. So if I have a need for some assistance, whether it's litigation or stuff that's not in litigation, they're there to help lessen the burden a little bit. But generally speaking, man, I knock it out.
Is it a fair fight though when you go to court against like a $1 billion company? You know what I'm saying? Because we know from watching the law, man, like if you have money, you could bleed somebody out of money just from whatever. You could. It might be you and your resources are paralegals, but that insurance company might have a whole squad. Like, yo,
right,
we about to obliterate you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Is it fair when y'all go to court?
Generally speaking, in my experience, it has been, because you got to be honest with yourself too about your capacity and what you can handle. So if I see that coming and I know that I'm going to be going up against a team of attorneys, then I'm going to start putting together my team. I'm going to call a couple of my guys that I went to law school with and say, look, here's this case I got. It's a good situation. There's some bread here. I have great clients. Here's how
we about to win.
Basically. So we'll squad up.
I need you to come through for this. I need you to come through for me, man.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's how it goes? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, truly, even the solo practitioner who hangs up his shingle, if he doesn't want to be alone, he doesn't have to when the lights come on.
Well, do you ever feel like, all right, we about to go to this part of New Orleans, man. I got to bring a white dude in with me. Like, is the strategy that much where you like, yo, I need to present myself, this white judge who is racist or whatever,
right,
or whatever, or this jury of whatever, I can't come in there with a bunch of black lawyers. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Is that ever a part of the strategy, or you just?
I would be lying to you if I said that it was never a part of the calculus. But you cannot let that necessarily control how you move, because if you've got a good case, you've got a good case. And you can't control people's biases either, no matter who's doing the advocating. And I'm telling you that from experience because I've been involved in cases where um, it may not have explicitly been said, but either you're brought in either because you might have a level of familiarity with the judge, or you might present well in front of a jury pool that might look a certain kind of way, and there's a mixed bag of results when that happens.
So I look at a case, man, like Trayvon Martin, right? How do you lose a case like that? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you lose that case? How does you know what I'm saying? So to me, I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, like if something happens like that, do I like have to get like a bunch of white lawyers and maybe a blonde haired, blue eyed white woman to represent me? Like I don't know, man. Like I'm confused on certain things within the law. I mean,
Yeah.
and sometimes I guess I don't know. It seems like when you have money, like I guess the law is like supposed to be black and white,
Hmm.
but it's like the more money you have, the more gray you can create. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
And that's why I asked that question about, man, I got to bring in a token white boy or something to make it seem like, you know, we're not the angry black mob coming in here trying to make change.
Right. It's interesting because, again, it's a sad reality, and I would be lying if I said it doesn't happen. But it happens both ways, believe it or not. Because, for example, in New Orleans, the majority of the jury pools we have parishes here, not counties. The majority of the jury pool in Orleans Parish, the general consensus is that that jury pool is going to look like you and I, generally speaking. And so you have a number of attorneys out there, white attorneys, who will bring in, you know, a couple of individuals who are considered heavy hitting black attorneys, um, to go to trial with them because they know that they're going to be in front. There's a strong likelihood that they'll be in front of a black jury. But to answer your question, I mean, yes, there are laws that have been put in certain jurisdictions, and there's a certain political climate that exists in certain cities and certain states where you're gonna have to play that game, and people do. And yeah, if you got money, in some instances, you can stretch it out long enough to where uh, the water gets gray enough, and people get off on things that they typically wouldn't get off if the right resources were available to the other side.
Damn. So man, do you think the system is racist?
I do think that the system is broken. Um, the system definitely needs some revamping. I think if you look at, and I don't do a lot of criminal work per se, but um, our incarceration rates in Louisiana are out the roof, and we've got a lot of efforts that are constantly being made to revamp the system here. We finally got on board with requiring unanimous juries in capital cases on the criminal side, which basically means that everyone on the jury has to agree that someone is guilty in order to convict them. That was not the case before, but now it is. And so, yeah, systematically, there's a lot of change that needs to happen. I mean, if you look at what happens in other countries and how police interact with people, there are some models out there that we could probably take some notes on. But it's going to require a complete overhaul, in my opinion, because every day on social media, on YouTube, on your Instagram, you're seeing these ridiculous stories about horrific things happening to people of color at the hands of police officers. And at some point change has to happen. So I think everything that's happening now is absolutely necessary, and hopefully we get the result that we need, but it's not going to happen overnight.
From H-Town, right?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, man, I was actually born in Toronto.
Oh, word.
Yeah, and grew up in Houston. My family moved to Houston when I was about 7 years old,
Whoa.
and my family is from the islands, man. I'm the child of a Jamaican and Trinidadian
Bro, that's what's up, man. Just like our
connection.
president, bro.
Yeah. So exactly. So my family, with those island roots, I spent a lot of time as a kid going down to the islands, and then my mother got a job opportunity in Houston in the medical center. She's a medical professional, um, and moved there and grew up down there until it was time to go away to DC.
Damn. So you was a hooper coming out of high school, right?
Yeah, man, I was heavy into the basketball thing. I lived and died by that basketball. I was having a conversation with a friend the other day. It's like that's really all I wanted to do growing up,
Man.
and had some scholarship offers coming out of high school. I played high school ball with Emeka Okafor and John Lucas. John and I grew up together. I'm a year older than him, but we'd known each other since we were young kids, and just so happened to end up going to the same high school. And like I said, Emeka was our center in high school,
Oh,
so
so
we had
y'all
some
was
pretty.
nice. Y'all was nice then.
Yeah, we had a pretty good team. You know, had made a little bit of noise during that period of time, and when I left, had some JUCO offers, and was like, you know what, I got pretty good grades, and Howard's a great school, so I'm gonna go up there and just try for the first time in my life to be a regular student and see what that's like, not be the student athlete. And when I got there, I just started missing basketball like crazy.
Yeah.
Like that was like driving me nuts. So I
But you
walked
got
on.
intramurals though, man. Intramurals is popping at Howard, man.
Yo, intramurals was popping. We got some crazy intramural stories, Josh. I don't know if you remember those intramural games.
Man, intramurals was popping, bro.
Yeah, yeah. It was some intramural fights that happened because we were kicking ass and taking names, man.
Oh, y'all was nice.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, but we that freshman year we had a really really good intramural team. It was a bunch of dudes that all played somewhere. It was like Kwaku was on that team, Nate, uh, who else? Ethan. I think Damo played, Alex Allen. Like it was a bunch of us, and we could go
Yeah.
a little bit. And we had a couple games where we beat the football team, the players, the guys from the football team who hadn't started playing yet. They were all playing intramurals, and they didn't take too kindly to that, so that led to some little scuffles here and there. But it made for good fun, good competition, and that was kind of the thing that sparked me, and got me feeling like, man, I should be hooping. I need to be playing ball.
So you walked on to the team at Howard, right?
Yeah, I walked on. Like I said, I was missing it like crazy, and went to the tryout, and you know, I guess that was my freshman year, and we had a great, we didn't have a great season, but I had a great experience playing. What was interesting about being on the team at that time was that like we did a whole lot of traveling. I mean, I have no idea what they're doing now. Obviously, I would assume the resources are even greater than they were then. But we had a Cali swing. We were out in Cali for a week. We went down to Memphis and played in the Pyramid. We went down to Florida, and at the time of year, it was freezing up in DC. And we went down to Florida, and it was like beach weather. Playing BCC and FAM. So it was a great experience, man. And I
What was that
just
like, being on a Division I team for HBCU?
it was interesting. When you play the bigger powerhouse schools, you're undermanned, to a degree, but we went into every game and we fought hard. We had some great rivalry games, like that HU Howard Hampton game was probably one of the dopest experiences I had, during that year. And
What's it like
uh,
though playing against these Division I or even mid? I mean, not Division I, but like the blue blood or like even a mid major, and knowing
yeah,
it like you like when you in practice, you know what I'm saying, your teammates, y'all good. You know what I'm saying? You like, damn, this nigga can hoop, he can hoop, he can hoop. But then y'all playing, but the dudes you on your team, they probably gonna be lawyers in 5 years. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You playing against cats that's really, really, their goal is really get to the NBA or play professional ball. Like, what's it like knowing that you can have the game of your life,
right.
and even if you had a game of your life, you probably lose by 10. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, or more.
What is that right or more? What is that like? You know, when you playing against cats, and it's not saying that you ain't going out there trying to compete,
Right.
but it's like, damn, these dudes just good. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
yeah, yeah,
What
yeah,
is that like, man? Knowing like you the underdog
yeah.
by a lot, and rightfully so.
Right, right,
Every
right.
single time out.
I mean, it can get kind of taxing. I'm not gonna lie. Like that was a long year. It was
Like
a
you just getting your ass whooped.
Yeah, it was a
You know what I'm
rough year.
saying?
But I will say this, man. Like if you a hooper, like if you a baller, you don't approach the game that way. You
Right,
know.
I know, but like, you probably be like, "Yo, does it turn into, hey, I got my man on lock." You know what I'm saying? Y'all getting y'all ass busted. Does it turn into that? Like, you know what
uh,
I'm saying?
Nah, I can say to be honest with you, nah, it never really turned into that. Like we had a saying when we came out the huddle at the time. Frankie Allen was the coach, and our little rally cry was "There's no substitute for hard work." And then on three, everybody would say "family." So trust me, like when you go through the hell that is preparing for a college basketball, I tell people all the time, college basketball is different from any other college sport because it takes up your entire year. See, every other sport is either a fall or a spring sport for the most part, right? But basketball, you start preseason training in like late September, October, and you're going at least until March, right? The dance is in April. That's your entire school year. And so between traveling and practice and then trying to maintain your grades, it is a huge sacrifice to be a college athlete. It is a huge sacrifice to play a college sport period in general, but basketball in particular, and I'm biased, but basketball in particular is a tough one because it literally takes up your whole year. And so yeah, like we may have taken some L's, but there was never any real dissension amongst the team because everyone's making the same sacrifice. Everybody's going through the same grind. Our freshman year, I have a very, very clear memory of Coach Allen being pissed off because it's homecoming and I think DMX was on the yard. I think that was our freshman year. Or it might have been Jay. It might have been Jay-Z. I don't know. And everybody in practice is clearly, I mean, we're in the gym, but everybody's mind is on the yard. We're like, man, we want to be outside. Like we want to be on the yard with everybody else, enjoying Howard homecoming. And we couldn't. Like we missed out. Coach took the ball, kicked it in the stands. He was
Damn.
like, I don't give a shit about no goddamn Jay-Z.
Oh
You
yeah, I
know,
remember, man. That was like one of my best homecomings, bro.
I
I'm sorry you
know.
ain't get to experience
I'm
that, man.
sure it was.
You ain't miss nothing. You ain't
Yeah,
miss
all
nothing, man.
right. But it's a sacrifice, man. But if you love the game, like most people, most kids who go on to play college basketball, man, they have such a passion and love for the game, man. And for me, I had a little perspective because I came into it with the mindset like, yeah, I'm not gonna play. I'm good. I'm gonna chill out. And then, like I said, I started missing it like crazy. So I appreciated being able to be on the team and play, and started a few games. At the end of that first year, the coaches were like, look, we can give you a scholarship in your last year. And I was like, well, hold on. It doesn't take being a business major to figure out if I'm going to play for you for 4 and you're only going to pay for 1, that don't really add up. So I decided
How
to,
many years did you play on the team?
I was on the team for 1 year.
Okay.
Yeah. But, and there was I had a lot of discussions with the coaches in the years following regarding me coming back. But financially, I was already making a big sacrifice because it took a toll on my grades being on the team that first year. So I had to rebound from being gone so much, and I had to really work my tail off to get my grades to where I wanted them to be. And so I told them, if I'm making that kind of sacrifice, y'all gotta come with something. And at the end of the day, I chose my academics. I chose to be a lawyer, Josh.
I mean, why don't you think top players from high schools come to HBCUs? I mean,
Great question. So you got this cat, Mikey Williams, and he's
a freshman though, right?
he's a freshman. I think he's a freshman. He's about to be a sophomore in high school. And he goes on social media and announces, "Hey, I'm putting these HBCUs in the mix now. Like, why not?" And I'm not doing it just for show. Like, I'm legitimately considering them. But I think that part of the challenge with getting your top tier talent is twofold. Number one, I think a lot of HBCU basketball coaches for the longest period of time gave up on trying to get those top tier talented kids, and so they weren't even a part of the conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
so what you've seen now is some coaches say, okay, well, I'm gonna reach out to the Compton Magic AAU team, the team that Mikey Williams plays on, and say, look, if he wants to come to a Howard, a Tennessee State, or whatever, we got a scholarship for him. So that's happening now, right? Whereas before, they wouldn't have even made that call. So part of it is the coaches taking the initiative to go to these big time tournaments and do the recruiting. But the other piece is not just the players, but the kids' parents understanding that HBCUs are an option. Because there's a great documentary I tell people they should watch. It's called Black Magic. Um, I want to
Never heard of
say,
that, man.
I want to say, I want to say ESPN put it together, and it literally chronicles the genesis of like HBCU basketball and John McClendon, who I believe is, the coach that everybody looked up to as the man back in the day, who was literally like running around the nation with his kids, meeting with these predominantly white schools in secluded venues with no crowds, playing these all white basketball teams against against the HBCU kids, and they are smacking people. And eventually, you had Texas Western beating up on Kentucky, and the predominantly white schools saying, well, look, maybe we need to start bringing in some of these, these African American kids to play at our schools. And that's how the dynamic changed. But that documentary, Black Magic, literally chronicles everything. It talks about every team, every
Is that on
coach,
Netflix?
and how that shift happened. I don't know where it is, man. I had the DVDs in my house. That's why. But if anyone like really wants to understand how that happened and what that story is, Black Magic.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but here's my thing, though, man. Like, we should at least have. There should at least be a HBCU that's like a Gonzaga. You know what I'm saying? Like a top 25, top 30 every year. We don't. Okay, fine. We don't get the blue chip player. We should at least have a team consistently in the top 25. Some school should like why would you go to like a Creighton over Howard? You know what I'm saying? Or
So here's why. Here's why. Because part of what it takes is, and I had this conversation with somebody the other day. This is just my opinion. I think it's gonna take a Fab Five type of model where you have 4 or 5 top tier kids who understand that we could potentially be making a huge sacrifice from an exposure standpoint, but we're going to go to this school. And
but if they teamed up, they'd be guaranteed to start. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And the way social media is, they would get hella exposure, hella news, because they would be followed, and they would probably go undefeated in their conference. You know what I'm saying? And they would definitely make the tournament. You know what I'm saying? But I think you're right, man. With the NBA being set up where you got to do 1 year, or you can go to the G League and cash out. But if you want to have that college experience, it does make more sense to team up with 5 guys than like be that one.
If you're only going to stay 1 year anyways.
Yeah, it don't make sense to be the dude that's doing it by himself. You know what I'm saying? Because that hurts your brand. But if you can do the 5-5 thing, man, that would be nuts, dude.
But I think that's what it's going to take because, let's say Mikey Williams decides to go to, or any one of these top tier kids decides to go to an HBCU, they kind of have to understand that part of the calculus and part of what you're going to have to accept is the possibility that you may have a rough season, right? Because, one player can make a difference, but sometimes that's not the case, right? And if he goes to an HBCU where he might not necessarily get the same level of exposure, but he's making the sacrifice and pulling that program up, then the benefit might not actually materialize until, that kid who comes when he's a senior comes in, and then the momentum is there, and he may have to go through some sacrifice. And the sacrifices, could be taking some losses. The sacrifice, granted, social media is a beast now, so falling into a dark corner where no one can see him is not as big of an issue. But Howard had the nation's leading scorer a couple of years ago, a kid that transferred to Tennessee and played for Rick Barnes in his fifth year. I think he got hurt his senior year. He made a little noise.
He didn't really do nothing in Tennessee though.
Exactly. And that's my point.
That's
my point. You can get lost. That's what I'm saying. You can get lost.
So when you was at Howard, you was in Phi Sig, rest in peace. Phi Sig. You know what I'm saying? What else was you doing at Howard, man? And when you was there?
Man, I was doing the most is what I was doing, Josh. Nah, man, I was involved with the Texas Club.
Club.
Got to rep that. I was involved with the Caribbean Student Association.
Yeah, man.
That was my roots. Heavily involved in the School of Business. Obviously, we are fellow School of B products, and so I have a lot.
School of B, nothing like that, bro.
A lot of love and affection for the School of B at the top of the hill. I was the vice president first of the Entertainment, Media, Sports, and Law Club, and then I became the president the subsequent year. And that organization was responsible for bringing people in those relative industries, tastemakers, to come speak at an annual conference that we did at Howard. So it was dope because we brought Magic Johnson, we brought Emil Wilbekin, who was the editor-in-chief of Vibe at the time. We just brought a lot of talented people to come in and speak.
Wow.
And so it was a good networking piece too, because you build a lot of relationships. I had an opportunity to do some work with ESPN by way of being involved with EMSL and just running around campus.
So you was a beast, man. I mean, so what was it like when you got to Howard, man? Did it meet your expectations?
So I got to be honest with you, man. When I left Houston and came to Howard, I only planned to stay for 1 year.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How's that?
Because I was so exhausted with stuff that was going on in Houston personally that I just needed to get away. And I had a close family friend who knew some Howard grads, and they essentially convinced my mother to let me go to Howard. She never, and ironically enough, before I went to Howard, between my senior year and actually leaving, or during my senior year, my mom had me go follow around an oncologist, a lawyer, and a couple of business professionals, some doctors who all were Howard grads, right?
Wow.
And the majority of them were medical professionals. And what I did not realize at the time was that she was trying to get me to go into medicine and study, bio pre-med. And it wasn't necessarily about Howard, it was about talking to medical professionals. And through those interactions, she got comfortable with the idea of letting me go to Howard. I applied to Howard, Morehouse, and a bunch of schools in Texas. And once I got into Howard, it was pretty much a wrap in my mind. And when I got there, even in consideration of the fact that I didn't necessarily think I was going to stay there all 4 years, I just wanted to get away for a year and just have a different experience away from Houston. When I got there, I fell in love, man. And that was it. It was a wrap after that.
Wouldn't have nothing to do with that 7-8 to 1 ratio, would it?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Man.
But it was beautiful, man. It was beautiful.
So when you get out of Howard, man, what were you doing after graduation?
So, I thought I was going to stay in sports. Sports was the passion. When I was at Howard, I was interning for the Washington Wizards when Michael Jordan was there, which was a pretty dope experience because I was in the communications department, so we dealt with the players directly. We interviewed the players. We put all the quotes together for the newspapers, so I got to know all the beat writers. And I just knew I was going to stay in sports. always had a plan to go to law school at some point. I connected with some other students on campus to put together LSAT classes while we were at Howard. So it was always a plan to do law school at some point. But initially, it was like even the law school thing was like, I'm going to stay in sports even when I get my law degree.
So were you thinking
And
like you're gonna be like a sports agent or something like that?
yeah, or just working for a team in some capacity, learning the game and getting into management was my initial desire. And when I graduated, you know, things got a little tough from an economic standpoint. I was working for the Wizards, coming doing the internship, but they kind of shrunk their working staff, their staff at that time. So I was just hustling after that and doing what I needed to. I ended up going into banking for a while, did real estate finance for a while. So I worked for a number of different mortgage companies, worked for Bank of America.
Mm.
And so I did the corporate thing for about 3 years after graduating. And I was like, you know what? It's time to go to law school. And applied to a bunch of law schools. Southern University in Baton Rouge, the Southern University Law Center, gave me tuition, and that made it a no-brainer. So came out to Baton Rouge and ventured off into this legal world.
Welcome to the Go Fish Village podcast. As a Chinese proverb says, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. At Go Fish, our goal is to teach individuals just like you how to build wealth through real estate. How much is like choosing like a top 15 law school or top 10 law school? How much does that determine like your trajectory in terms of like earning potential?
So it depends on what you want out of the experience. I have friends who went to law school and they were like, I could care less about a firm job and, my class ranking and all that, because when I get out, I'm hanging my own shingle. And I'm going to do my own thing and I'm going to be my own boss. And, for those who knew that from jump, the last thing that they were concerned with was, being in the top 5 or top 10%, because that was specifically something that was a goal of folks who wanted to go to a big firm. But if that wasn't your concern, then, just learning the law and having a good experience in law school is your focus, and getting through law school. Because the first year of law school is 3 years. The first year, the goal of law school is to weed out those who are not strong enough to continue. And so the first year is as tough as it can get. And so for me, I mean, I had some good corporate experience under my belt. I had the benefit of having some family. My wife's brother was with a law firm, so I basically went and worked with him at the end of my first year. Second year, got the in-house gig with Travelers, beasted that to the point where they felt comfortable making me a job offer. And so I went into my last year comfortable, whereas a lot of people had a lot of pressure on them to do, and perform well academically. And granted, I had good grades, but as you know, I went through law school with 3 kids. So my dynamic was a little different from the average law student. I wasn't a traditional student because I had a whole family.
Because you got married at what age?
23, 22, 23.
And you had the first kid at what age?
So I got married at 22 and the first kid came at 23. I think that's what it is.
What was that like, man? I mean,
that's tough, man.
Being married so young and having kids so young, that kind of changes the career.
Absolutely.
In terms of, I have to be involved in something that's producing bread. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, what was that like to kind of come into manhood like that?
Yeah, so you grow up quickly, obviously. And I don't know, for me, to a degree, I was ready for it because my sister and I are 10 years apart. And because I'm 10 years older than her, I was heavily involved in her rearing. And so to a degree, from the standpoint of like understanding what it takes to care for a kid and be involved in a child's life and the sacrifices that comes with that, I was somewhat prepared for that. When I was in high school, we were really grinding, And so I would take my mom to work, and I would take my sister to school, and then I would go to school every day, and I would go through basketball practice. I would leave school early before practice, go pick up my sister from school, come back to the school, go through practice, and then pick up my mom from work after practice and go home. And I did that every day. So making a sacrifice and understanding what came with that was not foreign to me. But obviously, when you're in your 20s, that's when you're supposed to be, running around, traveling, figuring out who you are. And I quickly had to grow up.
I mean, was it ever times where you just wanted to, give up, or maybe you felt like maybe you didn't want to give up, but you just felt like, man, this is just too hard. You know what I'm saying? When is it gonna get better? You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
What's interesting about that is when I graduated from law school, because my wife and I initially the first year were living in Baton Rouge, and we moved to New Orleans. As you know, Lacey is from New Orleans. And so we moved to New Orleans, and I was driving to Baton Rouge every day, right? And so going from New Orleans to Baton Rouge to North Baton Rouge, where the law center is about an hour and a half drive.
Damn.
And when I graduated, uh, we were in New Orleans, took the drive to Baton Rouge for the ceremony, and my grandfather or some family member came up to me and they were like, "You made this drive every day for the last 2.5 years?" And I was like, "Yeah." And when you're doing it, you don't think anything of it because you just put your head down and you're grinding, you're trying to push through. And there's a level of focus that you get because you're like, I can't fail. There's people relying on me. There's people that are dependent on me to get to a point where we can be a little bit more comfortable than we are right now. And so, yeah, I mean, I never really fell into a space where I was, down or like, woe is me, because I was too focused on pushing through.
So what was it like when you got that first paycheck with Travelers? I mean,
So,
obviously it's not millions, but
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? It's
yeah.
still, I'm sure that relief that you had, like, damn, okay, I got a career. Now we got some health insurance and,
Right.
all of that. What was that feeling like?
Well, I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't give credit to my wife because she held me down during that period. Like, don't get me wrong, it was tough on both of us, but she made it a lot easier on me because she had to carry the load where the kids were concerned. And so while I was heavily involved from the very beginning and continue to be, um, she made it a little bit easier because she was there to free me up to be able to go study every
Yeah.
night, and the grind. But to answer your question, man, it was like the weight of the world coming off your shoulders, and it wasn't the first check. It was really getting the job offer, but what it really was passing the bar, because you can go through law school. At that time, you could go through law school, and there are things that you have to do before you get license, as far as taking the bar, but also background checks, on and so forth. So unfortunately, there are folks out there who went through law school, didn't pass the background check. We call it character and fitness. If you don't pass character and fitness, you can't get licensed. And at that time, they didn't do character and fitness until after you went through law school. I believe now they do it earlier, like while you're in law
Damn.
school.
That seems petty.
So if you have a little checkered history, then that could affect your ability to get licensed. So for me, the relief came when I passed the bar. And
Damn.
so, because you go through law school, and then when you're done with law school, you got like a little 2 or 3 month window in there where you're just studying for the bar exam itself. And when you get that result, which comes months later, that's when the weight of the world is off, because now you're employable. Now you're self-employable if that's what you want to do. But prior to that, yeah,
And
man,
what
it's
what
like
what year did you finish
crazy.
law school?
I finished in '09.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so we didn't even talk about like Hurricane Katrina. I mean, were you impacted by that?
Yeah, ironically enough, so I was working for the Houston Rockets in Houston prior to Katrina.
Another high paying gig.
Yeah. You would like to think so. and and when my son was born, I moved to New Orleans. Like, he was born in April. I moved maybe, a month before he was born because I was working for the Rockets and made the decision to come here. And then 3.5 months later, Katrina hits and we moved right back to Houston.
Man, that's tough.
And I just quit my job and everything. So again, that's at that point, that's when I was like, all right, I'm just gonna go get a gig, and I ended up working for Bank of America doing the real estate finance thing. So there was some education and corporate experience that I got there, but it was a very, very trying time, man. It was for me. I was a little bit further removed from the connection to the city from an emotional standpoint, but having so many loved ones by way of my in-laws who were directly affected, it was devastating, man. It was tough to watch. And during that period of time, I was actually coming back and forth to New Orleans a lot because we still had all our stuff here. I mean, I remember being in a washateria the night before the hurricane hit, looking around like people are really actually leaving this time. Because at the time, people didn't really leave when they heard a hurricane was coming. It was like, oh, all right, water's gonna come, water's gonna go, we'll be all right. But that was different, obviously.
Damn.
And probably about 2 or 3 hours the morning that the hurricane hit, 2 or 3 hours before the traffic got crazy, we left. So we were actually able to get to Houston without any issue. We didn't get stuck in the crazy traffic, none of that.
Damn, man. So
But
Corona, that ain't nothing to you.
yeah, nah,
Like
not
this is a
really.
piece of cake. I've been through
Yeah.
this already.
Yeah, we've been through a lot in New Orleans, man. It's a testament to the resilience of the people in this city who have had to endure so much, but we've been through a lot, and we'll get through this too. But yeah, at that time, man, like Hurricane Katrina was a crazy period of time, man. It was a wild period of time.
Yeah. So, man, what advice, man, do you have for somebody coming into Howard, the 18-year-old Sean A. Blondell coming into Howard, man, and wants to have that amazing experience and also be prepared to have continued success later on? What advice do you have for that young person?
Well, number one, obviously, like believing in yourself and all that cliche stuff is that all that stuff holds true. But I think one of the things that I appreciated most about Howard was the relationships that I developed during my period of time there. So what I would tell somebody who's coming in um, as a freshman is to understand that the people that you're at Howard with um, literally are the embodiment of the greatness that we hear about in those who were at Howard before us, right? And you never know who you're sitting next to. The cat who's a door down from you in the dorm could be the next, you know, uh, president, the next mogul, the next big time hedge fund manager, the next whatever. And what you don't realize is just like you, they're just a kid at Howard who might be dreaming real big. So valuing those relationships and really nurturing those relationships is important. Um, I think who you know and what you know are equally important. And so there's a lot of knowledge to get when you're at Howard, but the relationship piece is huge, man. I tell people all the time, like one of the most beautiful things about being a Howard grad, literally right now, I could take a dart and just throw it at a map. Boom. And I'll probably know somebody in whatever city that dart lands on. I could just call them up and say, look, I'm gonna be in town in a day or two. And they're gonna be like, cool, you crashing at my crib. Just let me know when you get in. And that goes both ways. That's part of the beauty of being at Howard. So I would tell an incoming student, look, make sure you value those relationships and really nurture the relationships with the people that are there with you.
What about legacy, man? When you think about your legacy, what do you want that to be when it's all said and done?
So um, for me as a father of four beautiful children, as a husband, my legacy revolves around making sure that my children understand the sacrifices that both my wife and I have made for them, the expectation for achieving greatness that they should have for themselves, um, and for them to understand and know that I am, or from a legacy standpoint, was the type of individual who was very much so vested in my community, and valued relationships and people. And so that's important to appreciate the people that you go through this journey with in life. And I hope they fully appreciate that, way down the line.
So how do people get in touch with you, man? If I'm had one of these catastrophic injuries, man, and I gotta suit a man. You know what I'm saying? How do I get in touch with the Sean Blondell law firm?
Easiest way is to pick up the phone and call, man. 504-784-6200. Obviously, the website is there. It's SeanBlondell.com. That's SeanBlondell.com. My IG is Sean Blondell Law Firm. Twitter, I got a Twitter handle, but I don't really rock with Twitter like that right now. I need to spend some time on Twitter, but it's SB Get Results.
Get results, man. $, results.
Twitter wouldn't let me use the $ in the handle though, man. So it's just the regular S's. But yeah, I mean, Google me, baby.
Hey, that's real, man.
Yeah.
Hey, man. So before we close out, we're gonna do some quick Jeopardy, man. I hope you know some Howard history.
Here we go.
See what you know about the school.
Here we
do a little rapid fire. All right. So first question, man. What year was Howard founded?
1867.
Good stuff, boy. What is the Howard motto?
Veritas et utilitas. Truth and service, my brother.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
What's the name of the body of water that's closest to Howard University?
Oh, man. That's that little reservoir in the back there. You got me, Josh.
Oh, that's good. Reservoir, man.
Oh, yeah?
That's all I know it as, reservoir.
The reservoir.
What are the 4 halls that are in the quad?
Man, you killing me. I have no idea.
Like
I just call it the quad, man.
Truth, Crandall, Wheatley, Fraser. Can you spell Crampton?
Crampton, Crampton.
It's no P in Crampton.
I failed miserably on that one.
Reared against the eastern sky. What comes next?
Oh, you want the whole thing, or you just want that the next line?
Go for what you know, man.
Reared against the eastern sky, proudly there on hilltop high, far above the lake so blue, stands O Howard firm and true. There she stands for truth and right, sending forth her rays of light, clad in robes of majesty. O Howard, we sing of thee.
Whoa, bars.
Bars. Be thou still our guiding stay, leading us from day to day. Make us true and leal and strong, ever bold to battle wrong. When from thee we've gone away, may we strive for thee each day. Clad in robes of majesty, O Howard, we'll sing of thee.
Whoa, man, that's what's up, man.
Yeah.
Round of applause, man.
Hey,
good stuff, man.
Hey.
What's the Black National Anthem?
The Black National Anthem is why am I having a brain fart? And I know the words, Josh.
Lift every voice and sing.
Lift every voice and sing.
Who is Howard named after?
General Olive Otis Howard, who he was actually in charge of distributing the 40 acres and a mule until that kind of went out the window.
Who's the president of Howard?
Oh, my brother Frederick, Wayne Frederick.
How many schools and colleges does Howard have?
I want to say it's 13.
13, that's correct.
13.
What Divine Nine organizations were started at Howard?
7 of the 9 were started at Howard, I believe. That's all I got for you, though.
I don't know if it was 7. I gotta look that one up. But
You asking me a question you don't even know the answer to, Josh. Come on, man.
let me see. You got because the Iotas wasn't,
Right.
the Sigmas weren't, Sigma Gamma Rho,
You're right. Neither were the Alphas.
the Kappas or the Alphas. So
Or the Kappas, yeah.
yeah, man, get it together, Sean. All right. Rapid fire, man. Rapid fire. You just got to give a response, man. No explanation. U Street or Adams Morgan?
Oh, man. Adams Morgan.
Is homecoming better as a student or as an alum?
As a student.
You got to start one, cut one, or bench one. You got freshman orientation, homecoming, graduation.
Oh, man, that's rough. Start one, cut one, or bench one?
Yeah.
I'd I would start homecoming. I would cut orientation. Orientation was dope though, but I would cut orientation. And bench. What was the latter?
Bench, graduation.
Graduate. Oh yeah, we benched graduation anyways, Josh.
Yeah, I cut graduation. I ain't even have a graduation.
You remember what happened at our graduation?
It rained.
It rained. That's right. We didn't have a graduation.
Yeah, so I don't even. Freshman orientation was my number one, but next one. Howard men don't cheat.
True.
Fact. There we go. That's my lawyer right there.
There you go, baby.
Tailgate or yard fest?
Yard fest. As much as I love the tailgate, and I think it's a core of folks we were in school with that kind of spearheaded starting that tailgate. When we were at Howard, the yard fest was
it was lit.
That was
What? Let's see, Jordan or LeBron?
Jordan.
All right, next one. Worst advice you ever got?
The worst advice I ever got when I was learning how to drive in high school, my driving instructor told me to never wear my seatbelt in case I have to jump out the car on the interstate.
Yo, that's crazy.
Yeah, that's no lie. I'm not making that up.
Best advice.
Best advice.
You know, I know what your worst advice should have been.
What's that?
Walking down 6th Street when you was a freshman.
We didn't even get to that. We didn't even get to that story.
Walking down 6th Street.
We didn't get to that. We didn't get to that.
They told your ass. They told you.
Look, man, we were like 12 deep. We were like 12 deep. You want to get into that?
So you was 12 deep, and what was y'all leaving, like the quad or something?
No, man. So we were trying to be gentlemen. This wasn't even like being on some slick stuff. We were coming back from the mall, and it was about like 9 or 10 of us. And when we got off the subway, when we got off the metro, a young lady who was cool with all of us was walking back to the annex, and it was dark. So we said, all right, we'll walk her back to the annex and then cut up 6th Street, past the reservoir, which is behind the football stadium, behind the bleachers, right? And at that time, there was a hole in the fence, and the gate behind there wasn't all that well kept. And so we went past the annex, walked up 6th, and it's late and it's dark, and we're kind of spread out. And this guy jumps out. Well, 2 guys jumped out, and one of them pulls a gun, and he's like, "Run it!" So they take they basically hit the whole, like all of us. It was two of
Damn.
them. One was like a lookout. One was working everybody.
Damn.
Took
Tell
whatever
me
jewelry,
about
money.
all y'all, man.
Yeah, it was wild. It was
Welcome
wild.
to Howard.
Welcome to Howard.
That's old Howard though, because now white folks walking their dogs.
Yeah.
Over there, so
At least they're trying to.
You ain't got nothing to worry about. But damn.
Yeah. At least they're trying to. So yeah. So needless to say, that was in the paper and became a thing. But it all came about because we were trying to, like, be good folks. And Drew Hall, I stayed in Drew, so we were walking up the back, up 6 to go to Drew, and they just jumped out the hole and then ran over to Hobart Street afterwards.
Damn, it's a wrap.
Yep. You good on your rapid fire? You got something else?
Quad or NX?
NX.
Start one, bench one, cut one. Ho Chi, Cluck You, China Wonder.
Man, that's crazy, Josh. You can't. That's crazy. All right. So I would bench Cluck You. Start Ho Chi. And I guess China Wonder would have to go.
Last question, man. When did you first realize that you was the shit?
When I woke up.
39, 38 years ago, you was like, I'm the shit.
Yeah, straight out the womb, man. Straight out the womb.
That's what's up. Yo, man, you've been a great guest on the show, man. Thanks for coming on.
I appreciate you having me, Jay Mercer, man. I think I would be remiss if I didn't say that I'm a huge admirer of everything that you're doing, my brother. You got a lot of irons in the fire, so keep grinding, keep hustling. I'm a fan of everything you got going on, man. So keep pushing, man.
Thanks, man. Thank you for joining the HU Movemaker podcast, where we highlight folks that have contributed to the Howard legacy at the highest levels. To hear more interviews or purchase merchandise, please visit www.humovemakers.com.